I hope that everyone is well as we prepare for Shabbos Chazon and the upcoming overwhelming day of Tisha B'Av. So we recognize that if we ever really hope to turn around this dynamic and stop fasting on the day of Tisha B'Av, stop mourning during the 9 days, we have to, of course, find the courage to address the root causes of why we lost the Beis HaMikdash. And Chazal tell us, the rabbis explain to us in the Talmud, that the primary reason for the loss of the second Beis HaMikdash was sinas chinam, hatred, animosity, a lack of respect for one another. And whereas throughout the last 2,000 years, so much rabbinic ink has been spilled trying to explain this dynamic, trying to explain how it could be that people could despise each other so much, that people could disrespect one another to such a great degree, that the Shekhinah, the Ribono Shel Olam himself, would no longer feel comfortable dwelling in our midst. But I want to share with you just a simple idea that I think is something that, of course, I know is important to this group, as all of you, our members, have undertaken the responsibility of the Civility Pledge, and all of us are trying collectively and individually to try to improve our interpersonal conduct. And through doing that, make ourselves a little bit better, make society a little bit better. But of course, again, in this time of year, trying to do our part to bring back the Beis HaMikdash. And there's an incredible Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. The Mishnah explains that one of the miracles that the Jewish people experienced when we stood inside of the Beis HaMikdash was omdim tzefufim umishtachabim revachim. Literally, when we stood, everyone was packed together. But when we bowed down, mishtachabim revachim, there was room for everyone. And it's interesting when one looks at the commentaries on the Mishnah, there's a variety of explanations regarding this particular miracle. For example, Rashi and Rabbeinu Yonah understand that this miracle was specifically on Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur. Now the truth is, we'd have to imagine, if we close our mind's eye, we could see this, how the Beis HaMikdash was always packed on every single Yom Tov. Men, women, children, everyone coming together to worship together, to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu together. But Rashi and Rabbeinu Yonah understand that the Mishnah makes specific reference to Yom Kippur. Why Yom Kippur? Everyone was assembled. In fact, the Gemara Maseches Yoma explains that the Azar, the courtyard of the Beis HaMikdash, was packed even before the sun rose. Even before daybreak, the courtyard was packed. Everybody was standing shoulder to shoulder. Here is the problem. On Yom Kippur, we would prostrate ourselves in the Beis HaMikdash and we would say vidui, we would recite confession, an opportunity to confess one's sins before HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the most sacred place in the entire earth. The challenge is, vidui, confession, is very private. I don't want anyone else hearing my confession. I don't want anyone else hearing what I'm talking about to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the problem is, everybody's azar, the courtyard is packed to the gills. Everyone's standing shoulder to shoulder. So it's beautiful. There's achdus, but we're all going to be a little bit reticent to go ahead and confess our sins if I know that my neighbor could hear me. And as such, explained Rashi and the Rabbeinu Yonah, an incredible miracle occurred. Omdim tzefufim. When we were standing in the Beis HaMikdash, everyone was packed in. But mishtachavim, when we bowed down, again, the commentaries explain to recite vidui, to recite confession, mishtachavim, we bowed down for that, revachim. There was room for everyone. The miracle of personal space allowed each person to go ahead and confess their sins with a certain degree of privacy. A little bit out of earshot of the person next to them, so that I could have a meaningful, moving, confessional experience between myself and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the great tzaddik, Reb Menachem Mendel of Kotz, explains this a little bit differently. And the Rebbe says something so beautiful. The Rebbe says there's a deeper message. Omdim tzefufim. He says the Mishnah is coming to teach us a life lesson, not just about a miracle in the Beis HaMikdash, but a life lesson. Omdim. There are some people who always stand their ground. There are some people who always have to be right. There are people who always have to get their way. They're an omeid. They stand their ground and they refuse to yield. Well, if you choose to live life like that, and you're always an omeid, and you're always standing your ground, tzefufim, there's no room for anyone else. Conversely, if a person chooses to be mishtachavim, I bow, I yield, I'm willing to give in, because I recognize 9 out of 10 times the fight isn't worth it. 9 out of 10 times the machlokes just isn't worth it. Mishtachavim, if you're willing to yield to the other, revachim, there's room for everyone. What a profound life lesson. This is the choice we each have to make. Do I want to be an omeid or a mishtachaveh? Do I want to be the kind of person who always stands his ground? Now, of course, are there times in life where you have to stand your ground? Are there times in life where you have to draw your line in the sand? Absolutely. But to be honest, dear friends, those times are few and far between. If you want to be an omeid, if you always have to be right, then at the end of the day, just understand always being right is a lonely existence. Because if you always have to be right, there's no room for anyone else. But if you learn to be mevater, if I learn to yield, if I learn to give in, because the truth is, being happy is so much better than being right. If I learn the art of bowing, then suddenly there's room for everyone else. And what an incredible lesson on this Erev Shabbos Chazon, this eve of Tisha B'Av. So often machlokes is created because I need to be right. I just need to be right. Why do I need to be right? People need to be right for a variety of different reasons. Sometimes people need to be right because they have a very fragile ego. Sometimes people need to be right because of arrogance, which is often because of a very fragile ego. Sometimes we just need to be right, and we get so caught up with being right that we forget about all of the collateral damage of being an omeid, of always standing your ground. May we be zochem Yirtzeh Hashem to find the real koach. You see, people think that koach, true strength in life, is standing up for what you believe in. True koach in life is taking a stand. The truth is, true koach in life, true strength, is the ability to yield, is the ability to be mishtachaveh. Rabbi Nachman says, Kidai lihios vatron. It's worth it to yield. It's worth it to give in. It's worth it to go ahead and bow to the other, because that's how we make shalom within Klal Yisrael. That's how we make shalom in our world. May we be zochem Yirtzeh Hashem to internalize these beautiful words of the Kotzker, and in the merit of stopping to be omdim and instead adopting a mindset of mishtachavim. May we be zochem Yirtzeh Hashem to be back in the Beis Hamikdash, to see the miracle when we come together on Yom Kippur, all of us standing shoulder to shoulder, and then when it's time for vidui, all of us have the space to prostrate ourselves and talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu with a certain degree of privacy. May we zochem Yirtzeh Hashem to see that miracle speedily in our days. A good Erev Shabbos and a beautiful Shabbos Kodesh.